Ed Pavlic is the author of 5 previous books, including Winners Have Yet to Be Announced, A Song for Donny Hathaway, and A Paragraph of Bones and Other Kinds of Blue. His awards include the American Poetry Review Hahnemann First Book Prize. In 2012, he was a fellow at Harvard University's W.B. Du Bois Institute. The fall of 2013, Milkweed published his new book of poems, Visiting Hours at the Color Line. Mr. Pavlic teaches at the University of Georgia and lives in Athens, Georgia.
Oh, look at this, copy of Blue Train. Every podium should have one. Would it were true. Okay, how y'all doing? Everybody good? In the back? I want to just thank Quincy, everybody at Black Renaissance Noire for the beautiful publication, the beautiful production here. And, you know, it's a dreary thing, writers, sometimes to find your work in these kind of a heartfelt thing, but sometimes a dreary thing to find your work in a struggling publication which can barely print the word on the page. And sometimes it's a very enlivening thing to see the work so beautifully handled. Yeah. And then you see it looks so good and you think, damn, I wish it was better what I wrote. So I'm going to read a brief piece of this piece of my work that's in the current issue. It's an excerpt of a novel called In at the Door. Comes out of the traditional song, too high, you can't get over it, too wide, you can't get around it, too low, you can't get under it, you must come in at the door. And it's set in Chicago in the life of a young woman in her 30s named India Grayson, who grew up in what they called the Grave, which is one of the buildings of the Robert Taylor homes on the south side of Chicago. And owing to an incident she doesn't exactly recall, she was kind of sent out of the city and out of her family, grew up elsewhere, and vowed never to go back to the city of Chicago until those buildings were destroyed, thinking it would never happen. And of course, like all young people of the world, you know, they lived in would be forever lasting. And of course, then those buildings were destroyed, so she's returned to the city. This section of the book is the opening section. It's called Twilight. And the book is set in Chicago, as I said, but maybe in another way, the whole book takes place inside the voice of Shaka Khan. So, right. So his epigraph here, clouds, different shapes and sizes, hide in the horizon, Shaka Khan. This afternoon heat was a physical thing, an object, urban, alive. And at night, the city arches its back, its eyes go to slits, front limbs stretch out. The claws are invisible, and so are most of the scars. The heat eases as the day gives up to the motion, where everything that's not a scar rests. The scars take over and attempt to redeem the day. A telephone pole begs back the cleat, its divots. Things no river could forgive vanish, as if they haven't so much disappeared as slipped up inside of whatever or whomever they are for a while. It's like the way you fold a piece of paper in half, trace your thumbnail down the crease till it's sharp enough that the missing half of the page fills the room until there's nothing left to breathe. They say a person experiences a rush of pure elation at the moment, the exact moment of drowning. The day drowns the dark. The day drowns in the dark. Pieces of this elation come alive, parcels of fugitive heat. Invisible streams of it move around. Invisible streams of it move around, about in the streets, pause without pausing on stoops. It's as if all the promises of invisibility exist without the terrors. The terrors come later, of course, enough to break a bent beam of light. But for a half hour or so around sunset, after a hot day, it's pure drowning. That's how we know she got off the bus to go see Shame Luther at twilight in this place he'd found to live, where elation seemed to hang out longer than it did elsewhere. Where life was a wound, where life was wound into what happened on the missing half of the page. It's why she arrived by descending degrees, her presence terraced. It's why she was already gone by the time she found she couldn't leave, had never left. And thank you. So it's always interesting to read with so many different and other voices. And I always find myself changing many decisions I've made about what to read based on what I heard before. Gosh, I found these other three presentations very interesting. The piece in the theater, gosh. I've been doing this work on James Baldwin, and James Baldwin wrote about the theater. And he said in one of his pieces from the early 60s, the damnedest thing is that black actors do far more acting in the casting office to get the job than they'll ever be allowed to do on the job. And that whole bit about everything comes back to Dante. Okay. All right, so we'll see about that. I want to read this piece. I've been running around with this new book of mine, Visiting Hours, The Color Line, and I've been reading this piece that I'm trying to finish. So I want to read it here, and then I'm going to leave you people alone. I want to thank you again for coming. I know the world is a very busy place. Few places is more conspicuously true than New York City, and here we are. So the things you need to know about this piece. John Coltrane, saxophone player. We all know that. A synapse is a gap in the neural structure which allows nerves to communicate with each other. In the 19th century, this was thought to be a continuous system, like a vascular system, like your veins, but around the end of the 19th century, to people's chagrin and dismay, it was found that this is not a continuous system, that there are these gaps called synapses that we need to efficiently be in the world. This was painted by a Spanish physiologist who really wanted to be a painter. His name was Santiago Ramón y Cajal, and he painted the first, in his microscope, paintings of the synapse in the late 19th century. What else do you need to know about this piece? John Coltrane's last album was called, during his life, was called Interstellar Space. The heliopause is the place where the solar wind meets with that which is beyond, which is interstellar space. The termination shock is where the solar wind falls beneath the speed of sound. So, John Coltrane's birthday is September 23rd. He was 87, a month and 2 days ago? And so wrote this piece, started it there, because Train would have been 87 today. Epigraph by Jesmyn Ward from her new book, Men We Reap. We tried to outpace the thing that chased us, that said, you are nothing. And a part of this piece might be an argument with photography. Photos shoot what can't be shot. Extrusion of what still can still, never still. Hoof blash, wing blink. Hands down, in ear pause, we watch the eye attack itself. Faced with evidence, which is the lack of vision. Faced with a photo, as if what all the eye does is choose visible from invisible. Extrusions of a girl from Marrakesh leans off the tower of homage at Gibraltar. Susurrus her summer, her simum. Calyx of held. A fugitive erotics of vesicle and cleft. Santiago Ramón y Cajal, his carriage at the drawbridge. His eyes scan a torrent of arm. Mistress rhythms of the besos in a pale hand covered by a shawl. Train said, if one of my friends is ill, I'd like to play a certain song and he be cured. This blare of light is cleft enough is an open page, a signature of evaporated scars. Headline in fiction, February 22nd, 1967. Coltrane and Rashid Ali survive termination shock, traverse the heliopause, interstellar space. It was because I love you that I said exactly what I said. The paragraph this poem demands can only surrender or injure. Or injure. Extrusion of what? A photograph can graph. A shovel severs the root one sought to replant. The pause in a photo where one ear touches an untouchable hand. Calyx of held. September 21st, 2013, 2 years to the day after his state murder in Georgia, people hold hands in the DeKalb County Library, chant, I am Troy Davis. Train said, when he be broke, I'd bring out a different song, and immediately he'd have all the money he needed. Last Friday, John said, and this isn't Coltrane, but the brother with the bike and a can of beer in a bag sitting on the city steps across from my house, he said, after I finish this, I ain't gonna lie, I'm going back in for a year, maybe 2. The probation officer said, if I don't have work, don't have a job, I'm going back in for a year, maybe 2. I ain't bothering nobody. Ain't fucking with nobody. I ain't gonna lie. Voyager 1, interstellar probe, was launched September 5th, 1977. It exited the heliopause in August 2012. Engineers can't determine the precise date. On Thursday, July 10th, 2013, 21-year-old Marshawn Bradley was charged with aggravated battery for shooting 7-year-old Christian Lyles in Natco Park, Chicago, on the 4th of July. One of 70-some shootings in the city over the holiday weekend. Train said, but what these pieces are, and what is the road to attain the knowledge of them, that I don't know. I look for work now, dishwasher, shit like that. I went down over there, to that Mexican place. Agualinda? Yeah. Said, might you all need, a dishwasher? And John squints his eyes at me. No, I'm sorry. We don't need anything. His eyes come back. When you and I know what she was really thinking, nigga, you know we keep it in the family. The calyx of held, among the largest synapse in the body, the torrent of besos beyond the bridge of rhythm in a wrist, the shawl beyond the place of place. According to Reuters, one of the men in Chicago who shot 13 people spraying bullets into Cornell Park on September 19th, 2013, said, we were not aiming at anybody. At the termination shock, the solar wind falls below the speed of sound. Engineers can't precisely locate what happens in the hands from what happens to the hands. Train said, the true powers of music are still unknown. When an allergy affects the eye attacks the eye. As in a photo which disappears everything not visible. As in the eye sees a park full of nobody, full of nothing to aim at. Meanwhile, the song must be some like how the ear slips out the photo's side door. Cut to photo. The side door. John, maybe 2. I ain't bothering nobody. And waving his arm at the houses up where I live. I ain't up in them people's houses. I ain't gonna lie. First one was my fault. Okay. Public indecency. She says she wanted to get high. I ain't messing with nobody. In Artie Shapiro's living room in Los Angeles, August 22nd, 1955, Billie Holiday hums, "Please don't talk about me when I'm gone." Off mic, "The fuck can I do it in?" Jimmy Rolls, the piano player, laughing. It's 1967. Coltrane's shoes could use a polish. He's got a pain in his side. I'm a few months old. 5:30 a.m., a friend of mine confides she's got a fox going to earth in her chest. I admit, these days, it's been hard to precisely locate a good reason for reason. I smell sunshine, and blue smoke comes out of my mouth. My eye hunts itself, and whatever my eye hunts itself, and for what slips in and out of ears, for what sounds when friends fall between sounds. Here's the Dante part. If an analogy affects an enemy, then let's let Inferno the enemy, Inferno the enemy. Train said, to be able to control them must be, I believe, the goal of every musician. Thanks.